Happy Monday and welcome to our show. This is Perspective Meet the Candidate 2022 2. Again, welcome to our special podcast, Perspective Meet the Candidate 2022 Part 2. We did our first segment the week leading up to Mother's Day, and it was a dynamic session. So if you did, in fact, miss that session, it is saved on our Divine Vision Entertainment LLC Facebook page and YouTube, and you can watch that. We did have two candidates running for Jefferson County School Board on that Monday, and then that Tuesday, an incumbent seeking reelection for state representative, and then someone looking to defeat an incumbent. So all of these candidates have been sharing great information, and I would advise you again to go back and listen to all segments at your leisure. So before we get started tonight, just a few housekeeping rules for those this is your first time watching. Regularly, we are a podcast. We come on Mondays. We talk about issues that face the African American community, and really not just the African American community, but that affect all of us. But because we do have a primary election coming up on next Tuesday, which is a very important race, I have taken the time to kind of revamp the schedule a little bit to allow all candidates who do express interest to come on and tell you about themselves. So, having said that, I did want to get this cat out of the bag now, and I will announce it throughout the show. For this week only, hear me and hear me well, for this week only, and you probably won't see this again until there's another election coming up. We will be on with you for 4 days. So you have us for 4 days. We'll be on today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. And we do have candidates from different races that they're winning that will be on, and there was no way that I could refuse them because them wanting to come on shows, and I've researched all the candidates and their candidates, you need to hear from them. And so when they come on and tell you the different places that they're where you can vote for them, then you will know your neighborhood. But we tried to map out a candidate in each race. For state senate, which we will have someone on tomorrow, state representative, we have several judges that have been on. So we really tried to give you all a great combination so you can hear from these candidates and make the candidate of your choice. So here's the great thing about it. A lot of our judges that are running, they don't have a Republican running against them. So that means if they win the primaries, they've won the race. You just have to go back in November and seal the deal and fill their name in on the ballot. A lot of our state representatives, they're running without a Republican candidate running against them. So it will be the same with them. So I kind of wanted to make that clear. We will do the same thing for those candidates that will be on the ballot, and we have to vote for them in November. So you will see us start this thing probably mid-September, because we do want a lot for all candidates to come on to where you could get to know them. That's the reason that we're doing all of this. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. And good evening to everyone. And please note that during this segment, you can post your questions during the podcast. When you comment, you have to watch it from the Divine Vision Entertainment page on YouTube or Facebook, or I've shared it on my personal page for those who are friends with me on Facebook. But you actually have to log on to the feed. That's the only way that we will see your questions and comments. And so anytime you ask a question related to the candidate that we're interviewing at the time, we will definitely post that on the screen, and that candidate will be able to answer. So you won't see me post. I know a lot of y'all come on and y'all speak to each other. Those are the things that we don't post. So, but questions related to the candidate, those are the things that we do post. So I do ask that you would go ahead and share and tag this. Really, Jefferson County and Bessemer. So that's anybody that lives in Jefferson County and Bessemer. Those are the candidates that we're having on tonight. So our first candidate, Mr. Thomas Thrash, he is running for Circuit Court Judge, place 12 in the Bessemer cutoff. And to tell you a little bit about Judge Thrash, he has served as a private attorney. He's also served in Jefferson County as a Birmingham police officer, a sergeant, and as a deputy sheriff for a combined total of 25 years. He has also maintained a private practice for 14 years, focusing on criminal defense and family law, including serving as a certified guardian and litem. Since coming to the bench in 2018, Judge Thrash has gained judicial experience handling an average docket that exceeds 250 cases per week. These cases range from attempted murder all the way down from traffic citations. Dedication to duty is his pledge to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I welcome and present to some and introduce to others Judge Thomas E. Thrash. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you doing, Mr. Vines?
I'm good, and welcome to the Perspective family. And great to have you on as always. So let's go ahead and get started. Because I do want to make sure that we get the full time allotted in for you to be with us. So the first question that I always like to start off with, kind of tell us about your role. I know I did read a little bit in your bio, but kind of tell us a little bit about the judge seat that you currently hold, and then after you answer that, kind of talk to us about what you will be doing in the judge seat that you are running for.
Certainly. And let me say thank you for this opportunity and good evening to the
Absolutely.
listeners. So, I am your sitting district court judge at place 11. And at place 11, my assignment is a criminal assignment. Uh, I'm the only district court judge in the Bessemer Division of Jefferson County that handles felonies and misdemeanor cases. When I say I handle all cases ranging from attempted murder down to the traffic citations, those types of cases are cases that come in, such as attempted murder, rape, robbery, sodomy, uh, sex abuse of children, sex abuse, period, burglaries, thefts, fraudulent use of a credit card, even to possession of drugs, domestic violence cases, DUI cases, uh, as I've said before, all the way down to the simplest things as a speeding ticket. So that's a wide variety of cases that I handle. Uh, and in doing so, during COVID, we had an opportunity in district court to do something different with misdemeanor cases. The courts were closed for long periods of time, but people were constantly being arrested. And so, one of the things that came from a bad situation was the opportunity to create a deferred prosecution, if you will. Deferred prosecution is types of cases: misdemeanor, harassment, public intoxication, disorderly conduct, the type of things that are not large problems in the community, but can probably 9 times out of 10 be handled if the people who are involved in these situations have an opportunity to have some corrective classes. So we open the doors to that to a company, and we envision correcting behavior. I've said this before, and I've heard this quote that much of our suffering as human beings are not because of badness, it's because of blindness. So
Hmm.
we took that opportunity to take the blinders off, redirect people's focus, redirect behavior in hopes that they make better decisions and become better people. In addition to that, I'm also responsible for supervising 3 specialty courts. Well, what are specialty courts? Drug court, for instance, is geared toward treating people who have addictions, treating people who have a problem with drugs. And so that's a second opportunity, a second chance program, a deferred prosecution. If they'll come in and they accept the treatment and follow the guidelines, that case can be dismissed, albeit a felony, sometimes as well as misdemeanors. We also have domestic violence classes and a domestic violence court. Now, domestic violence is and by and large a big problem, but is not seen as a big problem. When I say it's not seen as a big problem, families, members of families, relationships in families, people argue, people have differences of opinion, and they spill over to what could possibly be criminal situations. Well, the thing about domestic violence is this: those people have feelings for one another, and a lot of times they don't want to go forward with a prosecution. But
Hmm.
where we come in district court is we want to help people make better decisions, help people to manage anger. So when they meet with those things that they are commonly seeing that's causing the problem, we want them to have better coping skills. So that's another specialty court where we offer that opportunity to get folks out of the norm and get them into something that gives them an opportunity to make a better decision when they meet those times that they're angry with their loved one. The other one is DUI, and the DUI, driving under the influence. Also, what people don't understand is combined influence. It doesn't necessarily have to be alcohol. It could be the use of drugs. It could be the use of your prescription medication that you should not use and then operate a vehicle. Well, if they're eligible for these programs, we do the same thing with the DUI. We want to give them the treatment that they may need upon assessment and the classes and the instructions that they need so that they know how to conduct themselves in a similar situation. So I'm proud to have that opportunity and be doing those things in district court. Also, the primary function of district court. Now, those are some courtesies that district court provides, but the main function for district court is to handle those cases that come in that may be felony in nature, the things that I told you about previously, and decide issues of bond and preliminary matters. In those cases, once those issues are resolved in the Bessemer Division of Jefferson County, those cases are often passed over to circuit court. So when we talk about district court, that usually is the court of beginnings, if you allow me, the court of beginnings.
Okay.
And circuit court uh, tends to be the court of conclusions. District court, we don't have jury trials by law. When I say jury trials, the traditional people coming in deciding the case. But in circuit court, this is where we have our jury trials and where a lot of our felony cases are decided, whether it be by trial, whether it be by plea, or whether it be by dismissal. So circuit court, the cases that I don't handle that I didn't mention, for instance, murder and capital murder, those are the types of cases that are also included, along with the cases that I've told you
Okay.
about before. And they are the cases that if there's a trial that's needed, that's where the trial can be had. And those are the situations where those cases fall to conclusion. So in my seeking circuit court place 12, I'm actually taking the cases that I've seen, many of them, and the examples that I've come to experience in district court, taking that experience to circuit court and applying that knowledge, not by a specific case, but the way that the cases come in, the facts, the circumstances, procedural matters, taking that experience to circuit court to handle those cases to conclusion. Now, if you'll give me the second question again, Mr. Vines, I'll answer it.
Okay, so you kind of started, but so it sounds like that the judge seat that you're seeking for is sort of like a promotion. Would that be correct?
It's a promotion. It is
Okay.
it's a greater responsibility. You're serving the
Okay.
same citizens, but this is a greater responsibility. Very important to be attentive. Very important to have some experience, and because these matters result in capital murder cases, death penalty decisions, the decision to conclude by death or conclude by life imprisonment, murder situations. We're talking about things that affect people's lives and for a long period of time. So it's very important to have some experience. It's very important to make the applications properly because people's lives hang in the balance.
Okay. And the next thing, in reading your bio, you are very qualified. You know, starting as a police officer, then um, police officer, then a sergeant, then a deputy sheriff, and then many years as an attorney. Let's talk about the passion for continuing, because all of these things round out in your love for people. So let's talk about why seeking a higher judgeship. Because even in talking to you in our pre talk before we came live tonight, I can tell that you're very passionate about all of your years of service in our law enforcement and as an attorney and even as a judge. So just talk about that passion for a few moments.
I'm glad you said that. I do have a passion for people, and my heart is about people. I love being around people. One of the things that I found as I was growing up, and I began to experience things in my civil service career, is that a lot of times we don't have information. And the lack of information creates the opportunity to make decisions that we otherwise wouldn't make. So
Okay.
early on in my career, as when I was a deputy in the jail, I would talk to some of the pretrial inmates. And one thing, let me tell you this: no matter what people are, they are still people. There are a lot of good people in bad situations.
Mm-hmm.
I began to learn about different decisions that people had made. And when I was doing that, I was 23 years old. There were people who were younger than me incarcerated in the county jail awaiting trial, people my age and older. So I had an opportunity to talk with people while I was doing my job and learn that some of the things that they had gone through, some of the information that they had not received, some of the educational opportunities that they did not take advantage of, and it landed them where they were. And a lot of times when people are already in a situation, you feel bad, but the circumstances and the consequences already are there. And you wish, what if I had met this person before,
Absolutely.
years later, years earlier? What if I knew this person? What if I was this person's friends or we were friends? Would that have effect some of the decisions that were made? I know in my personal life, there were many people that were instrumental in guiding me. So I progressed on to the Birmingham Police Department, and I held a multiplicity of assignments. And in those assignments, I further realized that this is a continuing problem, that we are misinformed and just plain old not informed.
Mm-hmm.
Things like, and I'll give you an example. A lot of times when people say, I did it and it was self defense, the street has its own definition of self defense that's not applicable to the code of Alabama. We can't go around saying that it's self defense because we got into an argument with somebody yesterday that
Mm-hmm.
might have been armed yesterday. And when we see them tomorrow, we say, well, I'm armed now. An argument ensues and a life is taken. And we may think, well, that was self defense. We're not informed that that's not how it works. And the application that the street may give us a lot of times is a misapplication to what is consistent with the code of Alabama. Thus, we find ourselves in a situation that maybe we would not have made that decision if we had been better informed. So I began to see that in the Birmingham Police Department. I began to experience going on crime scenes, listening to different witnesses, whether it be a homicide scene. I've also had experience as a narcotics officer, undercover officer. So I'm always around people with my ears and my eyes on and amazed at what people actually think as opposed to what actually is. And I continued to go to school. I got an undergraduate degree from UAB. I progressed to go to Miles Law School, proud of that fact, HBCU. And I obtained a law degree. I continued on past the bar, and I kept both jobs.
Okay.
Mr. Bynes, I kept both jobs. I would practice law in the daytime and go to my police job at night. And ironically enough, my practice was criminal defense. As a criminal defense attorney, I tried to give information. And I would challenge my clients that once it became my client and we got a case resolved, hey, friend, before you find yourself doing something else, it's easier to get my opinion, my free opinion about what you should do and not do, as opposed to taking part in something and then having to hire me or I be appointed to represent you. And those are the opportunities that I took, speaking in schools, speaking to church groups, neighborhood association groups, just trying to get the message out. So when I took the bench, I had the experience in law enforcement. I had over 12 years in experience as a criminal defense attorney, and taking the bench gave me a unique opportunity to give back to the community in retrospect. In retrospect, from the experience from law enforcement as well as the experience in criminal defense. So when people come to me in court, I think that I have a pretty good ear and eye to ascertain what's fact and what's fiction. And even while I'm on the bench, I try to take the opportunity to give additional education because believe it or not, the people that come into the courtroom, they take information back home, back out to the streets. And what you want them to take back is correct information.
Absolutely.
Hopefully they spread that just like they spread other information and people are
Mm-hmm.
better informed. I want to say this and I'll take the next question is this. I want
Okay.
folks to know that 240 is a public forum. 1851 2nd Avenue North, room 240. That's my courtroom. It's a public forum. I work for the people. You're my employer. I'm your employee. You don't have to have a criminal case to come by and see me. You don't have to be in trouble to come in my courtroom. You can come without charges, come in and observe court. And the more people we educate, the less people that have cases, you can still
Mhm.
come and we can just have casual conversation and talk about how great our community has become for sharing information. So I have an habit of running on long. So I'm gonna let you ask another question.
No, you're good. Like I told you during the pre-talk, wanted to make sure that you did provide as much information as you could. But I do want to pause now and let's tell all the viewers that are watching tonight and those that will watch the replay, for people living in what areas, want to make sure we know those that can vote for you.
Certainly, very important. I'm finding out even from 2018 and now that people don't know what the cutoff is. I'll tell you geographically, I cover everything to the west to Tuscaloosa County, everything
Hmm.
south to Shelby County, and everything north to about Walker County. Now, having said that, let me give you the specific cities that people can identify with. Bessemer, of course, Fairfield, Midfield, Lipscomb, Brighton, Pleasant Grove, Hueytown, McCullough,
Hmm.
unincorporated parts of Jefferson County, Sylvan Springs, Concord, some parts of Birmingham. When you get over in the Roosevelt area and the Raleigh area,
Okay.
are included in the Bessemer cutoff. So those cities are primarily cities that we all know and love, and many of us live in. But because we call it the Bessemer cutoff, we have to keep sight of that they are included in that division of Jefferson County. Two parts of Jefferson County, the Birmingham division and the Bessemer division, and this is where we are in the Bessemer division.
And I'll have you to do that again before we end the segment with you. We are probably about right at about 20 more minutes, so I do want to make sure that we get as much as possible in. So I did have a chance to hear you on another interview that you did. And one thing that stuck out to me when you talked about going into schools mentoring, I think that is very important, particularly with our young males. Kind of talk about why that's a passion to you, and then talk about how you will continue to do that, winning this judge seat.
Sure, I'm a product of Bessemer City school system. I graduated from what was then just Lanier High School and what is
Okay.
now Bessemer City High School. When I went to high school, we didn't have many people coming and talking to us and mentoring to us, giving us opportunities and sharing with us about professional careers that they had. We had excellent teachers, excellent teachers. We had excellent curriculum, but not many people that look like I do
Hmm.
that were able to be in school other than the teachers to come in and give us talks and mentoring. And I think that a lot of times when we look at a picture, if you will, when we look at a picture, we're not interested in that picture if we can't see ourselves in that picture. And I think when we talk about our young people, they may not be interested in a picture where they cannot see themselves. So it's important for judges, attorneys, firefighters, police officers, uh, as well as the teachers, as many professionals that we have go to the schools, show them the picture that does include them. Because when they see you, when they see me, they can see themselves. And you won't buy into an ideal unless it has something for you in it. And that's one of the main things I want our young people to know is that there's a whole world outside of 35020, 35023, 35127, 35022. All of these are zip codes that are within the Bessemer division of Jefferson County. But sometimes our young people don't have an opportunity to go outside of that zip code. Sometimes our young people don't have an opportunity to get outside of Jefferson County. And when
Absolutely.
you don't have an opportunity to do that, you don't have an opportunity to let what's inside this grow. It's a lot that's out there that they're not seeing. So if all I see is what's going on within my zip code, then I'm stifled. The sky becomes my limit when the limit should be the sky. And that's important to me. Anybody that knows me knows that I'll talk to one person just as well as I'll talk to 100 people, as long as I'm helping somebody. And that's a passion that I have. And that's all of our callings in life, to help somebody. So my passion is, whether it be one or whether it be 100, if somebody is if I help somebody, then I've helped myself and humanity, and I've given somebody something that they can use to help somebody else. So yeah,
Absolutely.
we do that. We do that routinely and often.
Okay. So let's go ahead and do this. If you're watching now, go ahead and post your questions in the comment section. So to kind of like make the time go by faster. I do have some more questions, but I want to make sure that we keep this energetic and upbeat. So we do have a question that's been in the comments. So like I said, if you're watching now or you come on, you can go ahead and post your questions and we'll go ahead and get those up so we can go ahead and get that taken care of. Our first question: are you in favor of the concealed carry gun laws in Alabama?
Okay, so here's a an uninteresting answer, if
Okay,
you will. I am not allowed to give my personal opinion on laws. I have sworn to uphold the law and follow the law. Um, I will say this, uh, to give a little bit of an answer, but I'm not able to answer that.
gotcha.
I want what's good for public safety, as we all should want. While we have the constitutional right to bear arms, it is my prayer daily that we have a responsibility that we hold in our hearts and our minds, to remind us that that is a right that should not be taken uh, without precaution,
Hmm.
without great care and concern. Uh, and I think that we should always look towards public safety, and we should always preserve the rights of everyone. But I think that, um, or let me say this, I'm for public safety, and I believe that we need to make prudent decisions while we have the right to carry and bear arms. So that's the safest thing for me to say, as a judge that's sworn by the law and sworn to follow the law.
Okay. All right. Next question: what community outreach programs for crime prevention in young people do you support?
I'm glad you asked that question. I was recently participated in a community development program, and I mentioned the lady's name, Arthur Burton, where we had myself and several other professionals at the Bessemer Civic Center speaking. We had a panel of some judges, some lawyers, some local community leaders, and this was a community development program that was put on. I also have, and all of these programs I think are designed to prevent crime and promote productive citizenry. I've been a member of the Red Cross board in the past. I'm a member of 21st Street Baptist Church. In addition to that, uh, I have spoken at the Lamplighter's Association. I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi, and this is a mentoring group that we have of young men that uh, range from age 12 to 18. Um, what else? And just really most of the time it's a personal one-on-one mentoring that I do, or a one-to-group mentoring uh, that I do. So I think that all of them are geared toward crime prevention. Also, we had an opportunity to participate in a local event at Miles College, a seat at the table, another opportunity to bring our lamplighters and any young people in the community in, to have them to meet other elected officials, not just elected officials, but professionals in the community. So a lot of the mentoring that I do is in joint or join with other groups, my fraternity, as well as church groups, civic groups, and so forth.
Okay. All right. And let's talk a bit about this for a moment because I don't think a lot of times when we, especially with our judges, I don't think we talk about enough how you do have to work with other community elected officials such as the city council in Bessemer. You mentioned certain parts of Birmingham, so that may where you have to work with the city council in Birmingham, preachers, commissioners, community at large. What does that look like for you in being able to work with all of those parties and probably some I didn't even mention when we talk about a state level?
I don't have an opportunity to do. I haven't. I won't say
Okay.
what I won't have in the future, but I haven't had an opportunity to work with any best. I mean Birmingham City Council
Okay.
person, but I have conversations quite frequently with those city council people here in the city of Bessemer, and they have different projects that they have going on. Not just the city of Bessemer, uh, the mayor and council in Lipscomb, the mayor and the senior citizens program in Brighton, and some of these things are coming to my mind now, uh, and there are so many that I failed to mention. We have the Bessemer Ministers Association, and they have prayer walks. Hadn't had opportunity to participate in a prayer walk recently due to campaign obligations and work commitments, but I've been on several of the calls with the Bessemer Ministers Association where they actually try to address uh, violent behavior in the community within weeks of something happening. Also, we just recently had the day of prayer where we brought
Okay.
people to the park to pray, and those are the type of things that we come to and we are able to participate in. But what I'd like to see is this: many of the people that we need to see and touch, they are not the people that are present for the prayer walks. They're not the people that are present for the outings in the park where the activities are geared toward crime prevention. Those people tend to be elsewhere. And so we've taken the opportunity, the Bessemer Ministers Association, to go into those communities and those prayer walks and try to get as close to the people that may be suffering from misinformation, no information, and trying to get them the information that they need to make better decisions.
Okay. Accountability. I know you and I can talk about the many elections that we've heard where we've heard that, but for you, how important is that the voters, when you are elected, that they hold you accountable?
It's very important. I personally, I like for people to see me away from the bench. I
Okay.
like for you to see me at the car wash. I like for you to see me at the Walmart, the Target. I like for you to see me outside of a suit and a tie. I want to come to as many events as I possibly can. I actually stay connected to people that I've gone to school with, their families. People have my number. And while I can't specifically go into depth about cases when people call, it's important for them to know that I got the call. It's important for them to know that they're going to see me at the grocery store, Fresh Value, getting my eggs and my cheese grits in the morning, and that they have an opportunity to say, well, hey, you know, uh, if you get a chance, can you look at this? If you get a chance, will you try to help this person? And like I said, I can never respond and say, well, this is what's going on in the case, and this is what the probable cause is. You're not going to get that answer from me, but
Right.
what you will get from me is an opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation because I make myself available in my exposure daily. I'm not a person that you can't find me. Most
Okay.
people know me, and they know me other than Judge Thrash. They know me as a person, and they can talk to me. And I'm always telling them, hey, look, I'll be fair. I'll do what I can, and I'm accountable for my actions on the job that you've hired me to do. And even if I can't give you what you want, I will give you the time to express yourself. I will give you the opportunity to vent, and I will still do what I'm called upon to do. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm back. I'll still do what I'm called upon to do. Uh, but people being able to talk to the public officials once you're elected is so important. People want to know that they have somebody that they can talk to, that they can touch, and that they don't have to be put off and "Oh, I can never find him." You can find me.
Okay. Good deal. So we have about 8 minutes, and we do have three more questions. And so in that 8 minutes, we're also going to get the three questions answered and then give you a chance to make closing statements. So if you have not asked the question, if you haven't answered the question, ask the question. You can still go ahead and answer it. But Judge Thresh may have to answer offline due to the fact that we do have a tight schedule tonight, and we're trying to get all of our candidates in and out so that they could have the same time. Our next question, this is a good one. What are your thoughts about decriminalized charges regarding marijuana?
Okay. I listen. Um, Here's what I do. We have some deferred prosecution programs that address the behavior and address the usage. We seek to give those programs, and the people will participate, and
Mhm.
they will cooperate with what they're being asked to do. That case can be dismissed.
Okay.
Uh, so I cannot tell you, well, I think that this should be this way or that way. I can tell you what I do. There are two things, Mr. Vines: courtesy, and there is a right. The law says that there are certain consequences with regards to certain criminal charges.
Mhm.
The right of every person is to be treated fairly under the law. The courtesy, the courtesy, if you will, in some cases, if it's available, the courtesy is to extend this deferred prosecution that I've told you about, that gives them
Mhm.
an opportunity to have the case dismissed, educate them on making better decisions. So I operate many times under a courtesy effect when I can. I can't tell you absolutely all the time because some of
Okay.
these cases are felonies, and
Mhm.
the state will not give up the prosecution by way of a deferred program. But when it's possible, marijuana possession and so forth, especially with young people, we want to promote them and make sure that they have the best opportunities and the most opportunities in life. We try to provide a courtesy and
Okay.
enabling them to get rid of their case so that they can later get it expunged. So I didn't tell you the answer of my thoughts. I won't tell you that, but I will tell you that we operate under courtesy
Okay.
and a right. You
Okay.
don't have that right, but we try to give you a courtesy and give you an opportunity to think about it another way when we give you the deferred prosecution.
Okay. Good deal. All right. What is your greatest professional accomplishment?
Hmm. I mean, if you ask me my greatest professional accomplishment, I would say being elected as a district court judge to this point. I would say that everything that I've done in the past in my professions, that those were my greatest efforts. And if they were my
Okay.
greatest efforts at the time, they were great accomplishments. Anytime you're doing something and you're giving it your best, I want everybody to believe that that's your greatest accomplishment for that day. We
Mhm.
only have one day at a time. Give that day and that duty your very best. And once you've done that, you'll have many accomplishments that you can reflect on, and you will have helped a great many people. But currently, my greatest professional accomplishment is being elected as district court judge and serving the people. And I'm
Okay.
proud. I think I'm doing a great job, and I want to do some more. I want to have another great accomplishment.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Two more questions. What alternatives do you offer the people that come before you?
Just as I spoke of, the courtesy, the deferred prosecution, you know, I'm not going to say that you can have deferred prosecution on attempted murder, sodomy, or rape, but those things speak for themselves. I think that people have a generalization of what things that we can provide courtesies on. You in court on a harassment or a disorderly conduct, even a domestic violence case, things like that. Well, we don't want to make your life worse. We want to make your life better. And if we can take these deferred prosecution programs and give you the education you need, then we've done a service not only for you but for the general public as well. So those are the things that I'm able to do, and those are the things that I've done.
All right. Last question. What would you say is the greatest threat of our safety?
Ignorance, and when we progress from ignorance, then all of the consequences that go with it. If we would appreciate life more than it appears that we do, and we can only do that by having more knowledge and more information. We could appreciate life, especially with our young people. If we could appreciate life more, then what we're experiencing now would not be, because we wouldn't take the tools of misinformation and misapply some of the things that we have a right to. I told you we have a right to bear arms, but when we misapply what that's for, that's when we pose the greatest threat to our safety.
Okay. All right. And so those are all of our questions. So again, I want to thank you for joining us. And go ahead and before we allow you to give closing statements, go ahead and let us know again people that are living in what areas and communities they can vote for you.
The Bessemer cutoff encompasses Brighton and Lipscomb, Fairfield and Midfield, Hueytown and Pleasant Grove, Concord and Sylvan Springs, McCullough, some parts of Hoover that are not in Shelby County, as well as some parts of Birmingham around
Okay.
Riley Station, Roosevelt, Brownville.
Okay.
What else do we call that over there? Um, Brownville, Roosevelt, Cairo, if you will.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. All of those places around there. So I've had an opportunity throughout my life to ride my bike, my skateboard, or whatever in all of these different areas. So all of them encompass the Bessemer Division of Jefferson County, the cutoff.
Okay. Okay. And I did post your website and your Facebook page in the comments. So for those who are watching, once we're done with tonight's podcast, if you want to pull up Judge Thresh website to learn more about him, even if you want to volunteer to work with his campaign, I'm sure he needs all the hands-on willing people that he can get. And also, if you want to donate, you can go to that website. But here is the website again. It's simplejudgethresh.com. And for those who are on Facebook, we do ask that you would go ahead and follow his page. It's Simple Judge Thresh. All right. And for closing statements, I will give you 1 minute. In these final statements, again, we want to thank you for coming on. We wish you the best of luck in the upcoming election. And Judge Thresh and I have already talked offline. You will be seeing him as a regular on future podcasts. So just we can talk about different things that are going on, and he can give his insight, and he can continue to educate us because the Bible tells us that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. We do want to make sure that we are providing you all with correct facts, not opinions, but correct facts that would make all of us better. So again, go ahead and take this last minute to appeal to voters why they should vote for you.
Hey, I want to thank you for the opportunity for coming on. And for anybody that's
Absolutely.
listening and has been listening, thank you for giving me your listening ear. Thank you for giving me your time. I want to give back to you in a greater capacity at the circuit court level at place 12. I love what I'm doing at place 11, but the opportunity has presented itself. And when the opportunity presents itself, I want to challenge all of you in Jefferson County and everywhere. Be epic, be bigger than the moment that you're in. And I'm only saying that to say this: the service that you provide is a service to humanity. It doesn't matter what you're doing. I take that seriously in the job that I have at Place 11 here in District Court. The opportunity has presented itself to me. To whom much is given, much is required. And since much is required, I offer my service to you as Circuit Court Judge at Place 12. Three things that you need to remember. Thomas Thrash is the right choice. May 24th, 2022 is the right time. And I am for the people. Sincerely, I'm for you. Thank you, Mr. Vines.
All right, again, thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and put you backstage. And again, ladies and gentlemen, that was Judge Thomas E. Thresh. Just a few quick announcements before we bring on our next candidate for the evening. Again, we will be back with you tomorrow. We'll be back with you tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. Excuse me. Tomorrow's lineup includes District Attorney Lanice Washington from the Bessemer Division. We will also have Dr. Will Board. Dr. Will Board is actually a candidate for U.S. Senate. And then last but not least, Adrienne Powell. She's running for Jefferson County Judge, I believe, place 23. So those will be our guests for tomorrow. So we will start at 7 and we want you to tune in. And at this time, I'm excited about our next guest. So go ahead and we'll do it the same way. If you have questions throughout the interview, go ahead and get them up. And then we will get to those questions actually during the interview. So our next guest is Attorney Chris Christie. Attorney Chris Christie is running for Jefferson County Court Judge, Birmingham Division, Civil Place 21. His 34 years of civil litigation experience has prepared him for this position. After teaching law at the University of Yaoundé School of Law in Cameroon as a Peace Corps worker, Chris clerked for a judge for 1 year. Then, for over 3 decades, he represented plaintiffs and defendants, primarily in the same types of civil cases that he would hear as a Jefferson County Circuit Judge. Based on his Alabama litigation practice, his peers in 2017 elected him as one of Alabama's top 50 attorneys out of over 1,900 Alabama lawyers. Frequently, he teaches continuing legal education courses on trial techniques, ethics, and other topics. Chris also has had an extensive pro bono practice representing abused prisoners, death row inmates, disenfranchised voters, and others who could not afford a lawyer. Chris serves as an elder at his church and teaches Sunday school and other Bible studies. He has also served as board chair of the Alabama chapter of the American Diabetes Association, president of the Legal Aid Society, and coach of dozens of youth sports teams. So, again, I'm excited to bring on our next guest. Give me one moment to get our background changed out. And, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, it is my pleasure to present to some and introduce to others Attorney Chris Christie. You're muted, Attorney Christie. Gotta give him. You're muted, Attorney Christie. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's okay. There we go.
As you can see, I have to have glasses on to be able to read, and I couldn't see the button was muted.
Well, welcome to the Perspective family. We're glad to have you on as we continue the conversation. So we're going to take just this next 40 minutes to give voters a more in-depth perspective of who Chris Christie is and why you are the right person for the seat that you're running for. So to get us started, let's kind of talk about your experience as an attorney. You can highlight some of your cases, and then the second part of that question, tell voters about the seat that you're running for judge.
Well, most of my practice has been civil litigation.
Okay.
By that I mean jury trials, personal injury, or business disputes. The position I'm running for, place 21, is in the Birmingham Division Civil. It is a court that does hear personal injury cases, whether that's a car accident, medical malpractice, and also business disputes. Any type of jury trial. Workers' compensation is also another important part of the docket before the judge that I'm the position I'm running for. Judge Thrash, the one who was talking earlier, is in the Bessemer Division, and he gave a description of what that was, and basically it's the western fourth of Jefferson County. Well, the Birmingham Division, the division I'm running in, is the 3/4 of the county east of the Bessemer Division. And so almost all of the city of Birmingham, the southern suburbs, the northern suburbs, Irondale, Trustville, they're all part of the Birmingham Division.
Okay, gotcha. And again, as we did with Judge Thrash, we'll have you to say that again before we end our segment with you. I'm gonna kind of rotate the questions around a little, and then again, if you're viewing tonight and you do have questions for Attorney Christie, feel free to post them in the comments, and then we will make sure we get those asked during the segment. Let's talk about because being an attorney and wanting to run for a seat on the judge bench, that ties in, as Judge Thresh and I talked about, that ties into a passion of helping people. So, kind of talk about your passion of helping people. When you talk about 34 years of civil litigation, that's a long time. So, I'm sure that you have several stories of how you've seen things changed and how you've seen them progress. But, kind of in your own way, just talk about your passion for helping people.
You know, my belief is that you are called to be a lawyer, just like a minister or preacher is called, or a doctor is called. And one of the things that has been an important part of my practice is doing pro bono work, because one thing that doing pro bono work reminds you of is that you're given a license by the state of Alabama to help people. And so when you do pro bono work, it emphasizes for yourself that what you're supposed to be doing is serving people who've got problems, legal problems. But that same attitude really is part of what you do when you represent any individual or a business. You really are given a license by the state of Alabama, a privilege to represent people, and there are certain rules that you need to follow and how you do that. Again, I'm running for a civil court position, and so in contrast to Judge Thrash, the cases that I'm in, you've got two parties. One has sued the other usually. And so there's some kind of problem in their lives that they're trying to resolve through the legal process.
Okay. And so when we talk about these type of judge seats, it's very important that we elect people who operate in integrity, honesty, and are going to be fair. And you and I talked about that on our pre-talk. Just talk about how those characteristics and traits have been important to you, and how you will continue to display those once you're elected for this seat.
It's easy for somebody to talk about and say that they have integrity, that they'll be fair, that they'll do things that promote equal justice for all. I think one thing that's important is maybe to look at what the person's done in the past. Especially by the time someone has got enough experience, enough life experience to where they would be running for judge, you should be able to look back at the things that they've done in the past and see whether they've walked or whether they're just talking the talk. I was a big brother and still am a big brother to a man who's now 50 through the Big Brother, Big Sisters program when I was in college. I started that as my freshman year. When I graduated from law school, I spent 2 years in Cameroon as a Peace Corps volunteer. I've spent years representing different people who have legal problems that couldn't afford a lawyer. A lot of those people were men on death row. As a matter of fact, I was at a larger firm, and we had a pro bono program. And at the time, we represented 26 men on death row. 1% of all the people in the state of Alabama on death row. We got 5 of them off of death row. One person actually, in addition to those 5, we got one person who actually was released from prison, and the blood evidence showed that he was not the person who had committed the crime that he had been convicted of. And so those kind of things happen. Those processes, those post-conviction death penalty processes are civil cases. I've represented a number of abused prisoners who've been taken advantage of by guards or just for no reason beaten by guards. Judges would call me and ask me to represent a prisoner who had filed a handwritten complaint trying to get relief from the courts. And the judges typically read those things, and if they think that there's some possible validity to it, they'll sometimes recruit lawyers. And I've handled a number of cases of that nature also.
Okay, awesome. And so when we talk about those things that you've done as an attorney with abused prisoners, those are conversations we tend to shy away from, but those things, they have been going on for years in prison, and they're still going on. And so, those inmates that do suffer abuse, they do need great representation, and they do need someone who's going to be fair to make sure that they have the best outcome overall. And then I know a big one, we may get some questions on this when we talk about representations during car accidents. Um, because I know we hear a lot, and those who listen to my podcast, we're very transparent. Um, it's easy for someone to say when there's a car accident, if it happened to them or if it didn't. Oh, you need to sue. You need to file a lawsuit. You need to get paid. But let's kind of talk about like how that process works. Just kind of walk us through a typical trial that you have seen where they were the plaintiff may have been trying to get over. And yeah, just kind of walk us through that, because like I said, those things happen. Those watching this podcast, those things happen. I would hope that nobody's watching you've ever thought about that sort of thing or done it, but those things do happen. So can you talk us through one of those cases?
I have handled a handful of car accident cases. And part of the reason for that is that the liability insurance company, State Farm, Allstate, Geico, whoever it is, they have lawyers that they use all the time. And so I've never worked for one of those insurance defense firms. I have handled several cases where there was a plaintiff, a person who'd been injured in a car accident, and the ones that I handled settled. Most cases like that do settle. It's unfortunate that sometimes people try to take advantage of the system by faking an injury. But usually the process works, and if somebody has not really been injured, they end up not recovering and are recovered just a nominal amount. Car accidents are an area where there's a lot of cases filed. But again, most of those are settled, and a lot of them are settled even before trial, because there's sort of a pattern that you see, that you can learn what's a likely result in a case like that. So I will tell you this: if you've had a serious car injury, you get a lawyer. And if the other side's, for example, if the other side is at fault and the liability carrier, State Farm, Allstate, whoever it is, tries to get you to settle with them without you getting a lawyer, that's probably not in your best interest.
Okay.
If you have a lawyer representing you, you're going to have your rights protected. And so I advise my family and friends, when they have those kind of situations, to have a lawyer represent them to make sure that their rights are protected, that if they're due some compensation, that they get it.
Okay. And just like we talked about with Attorney Thrash, I do want you to talk about the importance of, to our viewers, educating yourselves. Should you fall in one of these situations that you mentioned, knowing your rights so that you will be protected. Talk about that for a few moments.
All right. So this is not exactly an answer to your question, but it gives you an insight, all right, into the type of cases that I would handle.
Gotcha.
There are numbers of lawsuits where individuals can represent themselves. In the district courts in Jefferson County, which is the $20,000 or less a dispute, landlord-tenant law, and some other issues, often an individual, if they're can read and write well and savvy, can represent themselves. A jury trial is not a place, though, where a party can represent themselves well. There are so many rules that the individual doesn't know, who hasn't been in a courtroom and learned those types of procedures, that they're going to cause problems for themselves. So one of the things that judges sometimes do is they'll have an individual in front of them who is trying to represent themselves, and the judge can tell that they have rights that need to be protected, and they do what they can either to encourage the individual to have a lawyer, or, for example, the prisoners that I was talking about earlier. I was actually asked by judges to represent prisoners who had been, for no reason, beaten by a guard. So in a jury trial, an individual who is not a trial lawyer is going to have trouble understanding the rules of evidence and the procedures that are necessary in order to get their case to where the jury can hear it at the end of the case. And they very well could lose the case just because they don't know the rules.
Gotcha.
So, it is important for people to know their rights. But a lot of times, if you've been injured, for example, for an individual, or if you have a partial interest in a business and the other person squeezes you out, right? And so you want to have your rights to that business protected, then you need to get a lawyer to help you, because you're not in a position to do that without having someone who is capable of handling those types of issues help you.
Okay. And again, these are things that we need in our society. And so another thing I want to talk about is really like working with our city council commissioners. How important is that to you, that you really like generate positive, healthy relationships so that we can make sure that all of our citizens they get fair treatment in your courtroom, and basically those times when you have to partner with our government officials where it's a smooth transition?
So more so than almost anybody that's running for the position that I'm running for, I have relationships with a lot of city officials, county officials. But just to be frank with you, that is not important to the job that I'm going to be doing. So if the city of Birmingham is a party to a case, they're not going to get special treatment just because I know the mayor and I know the legal counsel for the city of Birmingham. All right. And so that's a funny thing to say, but those relationships that I have are important to me personally, especially in getting things done in our community. But in terms of cases in front of me, they're not.
Gotcha. And I wanted to ask that, and thank you for answering that, because that was something that I didn't know. And I'm sure that was something that a lot of our viewers did not know as well. Another scenario that I want to point out, we hear this a lot, and we don't know the in depth of it. If an employee, I'm not going to even say a factory or a plant, because we do hear injury related cases there a lot. Let's say someone works at a call center and they happen to be in the break room or leaving the break room and they slip and fall. A lot of times, because I worked in the call center industry for years, a lot of those employees don't understand their rights. They will say, well, I'm going to let it slide. And then when they make the decision to let it slide, the pain is still there and they have to go to the hospital. And sometimes the pain could really be, severe. Can I talk about that for a while?
All right. So almost any at work is going to be subject to workers' compensation.
Okay.
And workers' compensation has a specific schedule. Different types of injuries get certain types of compensation. And so if you're working on an assembly line and something happens in the assembly line and you get injured, or if you get injured and you slip and fall in the break room, it's the injury that determines the compensation, not whether it happened in the break room or on the assembly line.
Gotcha.
Alabama has what is probably the stingiest compensation for workers' compensation of any state. I know that it's stingier than most states. I've heard people say that it's the stingiest in the country, but I can't quantify that. Now, the amount of compensation that somebody gets is a matter of state law, and it's the legislators that would need to change the schedules and the compensation that people get. That's not part of my job as a lawyer. And part of my job, as a judge, and it wouldn't be as part of a judge. But as a judge, I do have some discretion in determining how injured somebody is and whether they're disabled and those types of decisions. Most workers' compensation cases settle, and the judge has a duty and a role in approving the settlement to make sure the worker is protected.
Okay. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us tonight, this is Perspective Meet the Candidate 2022 Part 2. And we're on with attorney Christie, who is running for Jefferson County judge, and we're having conversations. So again, those viewing, or you just may have chimed on, if you have questions for our candidate, you can go ahead and get them up. And as soon as I see it in the comment section, we will go ahead and get it posted so attorney Christie can ask those questions. Another part, Judge Thresh talked about this, and I thought this was important. being vital in the community, how important is it to you? And then also talk about being uh, relatable to the citizens, not where they know you um, as Judge Christie or Attorney Christie, but being able to, know that you're relatable and you're just a people person.
All right. So there's really sort of three ways to think about that question. And for
Okay.
me personally, being part of the community, understanding people's concerns is very important to me personally. I like to know what problems and how I might be able to help people with problems. I think it's also important for people to have trust in their government. And
Hmm.
one way to have trust in their government is to trust the people who you see as figures in the government. And
Hmm.
judges, frankly, if you have a case in front of a judge, that government official, that judge, is going to impact your life more than who's mayor, who's governor, who's senator, any other position, because they have so much influence over a case that's in front of a judge. And so it is important that people trust judges, that they look on the bench and they see people that look like them, right? That's a part of what needs to happen. Now, on the other hand, as a judge, in the way I rule on cases, that's really not part of it. I mean, you have laws that you apply, you have
Hmm.
facts that are presented in the courtroom, and how the facts that are presented in the courtroom have the law applied to them should determine how the case turns out and what the result is. And so someone could be a competent judge and have no connections with the community. I
Hmm.
don't think that they would be doing their full job if they did that. But
Okay.
you know, the ability to rule on evidentiary objections and to determine what the jury instructions ought to be, and to rule on motions that the lawyers file, those things don't really require the things that I think are important in order to help the community. So
Okay.
it's anyway. Uh,
Gotcha.
it's a different answer because of the type of courtroom that I'm going to be in. So I think Judge
Uh,
Thrash was right because he's a criminal judge, and it's a
Okay.
different type of case that's would be in front of him.
Gotcha. All right. Our next question. I kind of want to go back to where you were talking about the education part because that's a real important sector. Because I do think, like you and I were talking during the pre-talk, a lot of people when they're voting, they really don't know what the candidate is voting for or what they're running for. They just say, "Well, oh, I've seen his ads and I've seen him." And I'm not saying don't do that, but it should give you a sense of pride when you go to the polls and you say, "Well, hey, I've done my research on this person, and I told others to vote based on what I saw." Talk about the importance of candidates doing their research, and this is really even past the seat that you're running for because we see ads on TV, and anybody can put out an ad, anybody can put out a radio spot. They sound good, some are annoying, let's just be honest, and others they appeal to us in different ways. But let's talk about the importance of doing our research for these candidates.
Research is important. Um, it's it's hard to tell for the people sort of towards the top of the ticket, the governor's
Okay.
race, the United States Senate race, because those people get given so much money from out-of-state interests that they run TV ads, and those don't necessarily reflect the person who the ad is promoting, or
Hmm.
frankly, may not be fairly attacking the person that they're attacking. Because unfortunately, when I watch TV, I think I see more ads attacking one candidate or another. All right, but
Absolutely.
what I call the down ballot races, right, which is the state house, even the state senate, the judicial races. Um, those races, you don't raise enough money when you're running one of those races normally to have those type of ads. And
Hmm.
so, I'm running a very limited amount of television ads myself and some radio ads because I've been fortunate enough to raise more money than most judicial candidates have.
Right.
But I don't think that those are things that people really should rely on that much to vote for. Give me
Right.
some name ID, and people can't vote for you if they don't recognize your name. There are a number of groups that try on behalf of people, on behalf of voters,
Okay.
to recommend and endorse candidates. And I find that those groups usually make decisions based on the merits of the candidate. In other words, they don't endorse somebody just because they're somebody's brother or frankly what they look like, right? So, the Alabama Democratic Conference, Alabama New South Alliance, the Jefferson County Citizens Coalition, those are three groups that are known in Jefferson County for endorsing candidates. And I will tell you that if you find that some candidates endorsed by all three of those, then you're making a mistake if you don't vote for that candidate, right? I would say that if and I will tell you that most of the candidates those groups endorse the same candidate, and it's because the people who are involved in making those decisions know who the candidates are before they even start the process. And then two, they hold forums, and the candidates come in and they'll give a presentation, and then they'll answer questions and do a question Q&A. And through that process, you'll have a committee, and the committee could have 10, 12 people on it, and they vote and they decide who to endorse. That's how those processes work. And so I don't hear candidates say this very often, right? But I actually think that looking at those types of endorsements for a race where you don't recognize any of the names is probably going to be a quick, easy type of research that you to try to get a judgment as to who you might want to vote for.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we do have one question. Of all the cases that you've been a part of, what percentage have been settled and what percentage have went to trial?
Overall, if you take all the types of cases that I've handled, I would say 95% have settled. But you have to recognize that I've handled a number of matters where the lawyers on the other side filed like 1,000 cases that were similar, and then we negotiated all 1,000 of them. And so when you settle 1,000 cases at a time, all with some sort of similar settlement, then you end up having a high percentage of cases that settle. Most civil cases do settle. I would say that if you put aside the mass actions, right, the cases that I've handled where you had maybe 1,000 similar complaints all filed by the same law firm against the same defendant, I still think that probably 90% of my cases have settled. Now, in terms of trials, because of COVID, I've only had one trial in the last 3 years, right? We just haven't been having jury trials. I do have a jury trial set July 25th that I think we'll try. I had a trial in October 2020. Before that, I ran for Attorney General in 2018 on the Democratic ticket. And so I didn't have a trial for that whole year. I had a trial, 2 in 2017, 1 in 2016. I only had one trial in 2015, but it was a 10-week jury trial with the Department of Justice on the other side. And so it was a huge case. I've tried 10-week jury trials, and I've tried one-day jury trials. The process is similar, but the amount of work that goes into it is very different. The preparation for a 10-week jury trial is completely different than getting ready for a one-day trial.
Okay. All right. So we have about 10 more minutes. We want to make sure that we get as much as we can. And for those who are watching, I did just post Attorney Christie's website in the comment section. So after this podcast, please go on, and we'll be mentioning that again before this is over. Let's get into some things that I did mention that you kind of would like to talk about.
All right.
So whatever you would like to share, at this time, I give you the floor.
Question that you asked earlier, Judge Thrash, and you haven't asked me, is, what was the most important case that I've ever handled? And I have a specific answer to that.
Okay.
In 1992, I started representing a man who had been convicted and sentenced to death. And so the crime in 1986. In 1987, he had a jury trial. He was sentenced to death by a judge who overrode the jury. The judge who overrode the jury waited until he had remember the conservatives ran as Democrats back in the 80s.
Okay.
And so he waited until after he had the Democratic nomination, and then he sentenced my client to death and ran radio advertisements talking about having sentenced somebody to death when he was running for the Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals, which he then won that election.
Okay.
I started representing him in 1992. I took over the case and was the lead counsel starting in 1997. In 2010, I finally won my client a new trial.
Okay.
And in 2011, the state basically dropped that prosecution. Now, he had another life without parole sentence, and so he is not free at this point. He's still in prison, but he is no longer on death row. And it's, there are not many lawyers that can say they saved somebody's life. And I personally, to me, in my heart, right, it's something that I did. My client's name was Victor Stevens. He did not deserve to be on death row. He did some things he should not have done when he was taking drugs. And, but it was a bad situation. I will tell you that if anybody cares enough to listen to that, there is a YouTube video that's about 58 minutes. It's an hour, basically, where I'm talking to a bunch of law students about representing Victor Stevens. And I go through the whole case and have visual exhibits, show different things that happened during the case. And if someone's interested in reading that, there's two ways they can find it. One is I did that at Duke Law School. I went to Duke Law School and they invited me back to talk about this case. If you just Google death, Duke and Christie, it'll be one of the 3 or 4 top Google results that you get. Or you can go to my law firm's website on my personal page, which is just Googling Denton's, and Denton's is the first name in my law firm, and you go and find on one of my pages. You have to scroll down a couple pages because there's a lot of stuff there, and you can click directly into that YouTube video. And anyway, I invite anybody who wants to learn about how the death penalty system works in the state of Alabama to listen to that hour-long video.
What is one myth that you think that's said a lot in civil court that is not true, that you can kind of dispel tonight for us?
A myth. All right. I'm having to think of a myth from court. I'll tell you something. And this is a myth among lawyers. Okay. I think that a lot of lawyers believe that you can decide what jurors to strike. In other words, usually you'll have, say, 20 or 24 jurors who are in the jury pool, and then you strike that down to 12 jurors plus 2 alternates for the trial. And a lot of lawyers rely on demographics, age, job, race, and those are the primary factors that they use in deciding whether or not to take someone off the jury. And my own personal experience is that's wrong. That's a mistake. What you really want to do is you want to think about the priorities the juror has. So in other words, is this somebody who's very family oriented? Is this someone who's very authoritarian and always obeys authority when they're told to do something? So for example, if you get someone who's very authoritarian oriented, in other words, believes that you always follow the rules, and someone violated a rule, even if that wasn't part of why they got injured, they're more likely to find against that individual. And so I think that there are other factors that lawyers, so this is really lawyers that I'm directing this at as opposed to parties, individuals, that are really, I think, more important in deciding who you would want to be on the jury, deciding a jury of your peers, deciding who wins or loses the case that you have in front of the court.
Okay. All right. Our last question. What is the most important thing you will bring to the table if elected?
Part of me wants to say it's my education and my experience, but the truth of it is it's my heart. God told Samuel when he was, this 1 Samuel chapter 16, when he was choosing the next king of Israel before he anointed David, that God doesn't look at the appearance of a man, he looks at his heart. And, by heart, I mean your integrity, how you treat other people, your priorities in life, what you think is important to you and what you try to do. And so I really think that the most important part for people to think about when they're trying to decide what judge to vote on is what's in their heart.
Okay, awesome. Well, I want to thank you. We have about 3 minutes, and by the time I post your social media links and give you the final word, that will wrap up our time. So I do want to thank you for joining us tonight, and we do wish you the best of luck in the upcoming election. And as I told Judge Thresh, we do look forward to bringing you on regular to talk about different cases and bringing us knowledge as it relates to civil cases in civil court. And for anyone looking for more information about Attorney Christie, you can like and follow his Facebook page. Very simple, Christie for Judge. Again, Christie for Judge. And I'm going to put that in the comments as well. And then his website is the same thing, ChristieForJudge.com, ChristieForJudge.com. And as we said with Judge Thresh, I'm sure he welcomes all donations and any hands-on support that you would be willing to give. So give you about 2 minutes. Take those 2 minutes again to appeal to voters. Excuse me. Before you do that, remind us one more time who can vote for you in this election. And then after that, take those last 2 minutes to appeal to voters or why you are the right candidate for the job.
All right. So, my name is Chris Christie, and I am the original Chris Christie, born 3 years before the Republican in New Jersey who tried to take my name. And I'm running for Jefferson County Circuit Court, place 21. It's the Birmingham Civil Division, which is the 3/4 of Birmingham that are not the Bessemer cutoff, the 3/4 of Birmingham that are east towards Atlanta, if you want to think of it that way. And this is a civil jury position, which is basically the judge who presides over cases that would be jury trials if they get that far and they don't settle. I ask you to vote for me. I ask you to ask your family to vote for me, and I ask you to ask your friends to vote for me. And it is important, judge these judicial positions, criminal, judicial, and then the family domestic relations are really more important to your life than any other government elected position that we have in Alabama. And so I encourage you to learn about who the judicial candidates are and to make good selections and to vote on May 24th in the Democratic primary.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Attorney Christie, for joining us. And again, we wish you the best of luck. And we look forward to speaking with you soon. I'm going to take you backstage at this time.
Thank you, JaPaul.
You're welcome. All right. So again, ladies and gentlemen, that was Attorney Chris Christie. Give me a second to change our background out. So at this time, we will hear from our last candidate tonight. And I thank each of you who have stayed with us to the end. And I thank each of you who will hang out with us the remainder of the 3 days this week. We have a lot of great candidates on. And I think you'll be, very pleased with our selection. Our last candidate is Felicia Sumlin Rucker. She is the one and only female for the Jefferson County Sheriff's race. Felicia is a mother whose son served his country in the United States Army for over 10 years, only to come back to Jefferson County murdered. After her son's violent death, Felicia stepped up and raised his daughters. It is because of his tragedy and law enforcement experience that she is dedicated to help keep Jefferson County safe. When families become victims of crime, she promises to be there to help guide them through the entire process of seeking justice. Not only is Felicia committed, but she's qualified. Her education, she has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Columbia Southern University, experience corrections as a deputy sheriff, a deputy sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and deputy chief, vice and narcotics as a deputy, criminal division as a sergeant, identity theft as a sergeant, school resources as a deputy and captain, patrol division as a deputy sergeant and lieutenant. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to bring to some and present to others our only female candidate for the Jefferson County Sheriff's race, Miss Felicia Sumlin Rucker.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you?
All right, good. How are you?
Fine. Thank you for having me.
Good. Great to have you on. And so we're just going to take the next 40 minutes again, as I've done with the other two candidates tonight, so
Okay.
voters can get to know more about you. And then those watching, if you do have questions for our final candidate, go ahead and post those questions in the comment section. We will ask those questions during the comment session. So your first question is going to be a little different tonight.
Mhm.
Um, what was the thing that stood out to you um, from the current person that holds the seat as Jefferson County Sheriff? I'm sure there was something that said, okay, Felicia, you got to run for this. You can't sit on it. What was that one thing or that aha moment where you said, okay, I can't sit on this. I got to run?
I retired last year, and
Okay.
in April of 21.
Okay.
After 31 years of service with the sheriff's office, I was content at home. I had done my stint, and I was done.
Okay.
But the morale at the sheriff's office is at an all-time low,
Okay.
and so I've been contacted by numerous deputies asking for me to please step up and help. And so that's one of the things that catapulted me back into the spotlight. I um, I think our current sheriff is a super nice guy. I think he's a wonderful person. I just happen to think that he's in over his head, and so that's one of the things that made me get back out here. And because of my experience, and because of my training, my education, my background, I'm qualified to do this job. And if someone don't take the initiative, I don't think Jefferson County as a whole can will actually withstand another 4 years of this.
Okay. And here's a next question. This has been a lot of talk. Being that for years this has been an all male dominated role,
Mhm.
what do you feel that you, as our first ever Jefferson County female sheriff, what do you feel that you possibly can bring to the table or do different that a male may not pick up? Because it's a known fact, and I'm sure those who are watching, y'all can come from me in my inbox. It's the truth. Women sometimes pick up on things that men don't.
Mhm.
So, my mom is a mother. I have sisters. So,
Mhm.
yeah, y'all can cuss me out all you want to. It's true. Uh, but
That's
what
true.
do you think, being in this male dominated role, what do you think you could do different that previous administration, down through the years, I mean, going back years ago, has not been able to accomplish?
So being in a male dominated profession, which I guess is a good thing, is not anything new to me.
Okay.
It's been that way for me for the last 31 years. When I left the jail in '94 to go on patrol, because working for the sheriff's office, you have the option to either stay in the jail or to work patrol. So, and you still maintain the same pace, same rank. But I elected to go to patrol. I was told by my supervisor at that time, well, Felicia, it's a man's world out there. Do you really want to go out there on patrol? Because at that time there was one female on patrol in Bessemer when I went to the Bessemer cutoff, and that was Lisa Booth. Um, and so she was being moved to the Birmingham division. I was coming to Bessemer, and I said, well, it's going to be a man's world and Felicia because I'm going. And so over the years, is what I've noticed is that females have this ability to talk people down in volatile situations. For men, it's more ego, it's more muscle. The average, I'm gonna say the average, but most of the men in law enforcement, they're type A personalities, and we all are, but they rather fight it out. Females, on the other hand, we can talk you down because we're used to dealing with our children, keeping things quiet and under control at home, and so we kind of take that same thing into the workplace. My pastor, who just happens to be a retired deputy as well, she mostly worked the violent floors, and she could walk in when the men are fighting and just say, "Let him go," and they'll stop. And it's the average male deputy comes in and he has to get in the fight with them to break him up. He has to pepper spray him or break out his nightstick, and all she had to do was say, "Let him go," and it was yes, ma'am, and they'll stop. So it's a lot of we bring compassion, to the job. We bring empathy to the job. Men are pretty much no nonsense. It's cut and dry. It's black and white. That it is what it is. And females, we always try to find a way to make it work for everyone.
Okay. So let's start with this first. And I know we'll be able to get to questions, but I want to ask the question that I know everybody is thinking, violence. And I was having this conversation with some people earlier today. We know that violence is not just plaguing Jefferson County, Birmingham, but based on our news, it's all over. And we're starting to see it across America in cities and states that it was there, but it just wasn't widespread.
Right.
And I know, as many have said, the violence didn't happen overnight.
Right.
So, you really can't expect it to wake up the next morning and everything is gone. But kind of briefly give us your plan to help curb the violence that we're seeing in Jefferson County.
So one of the things, and I'm gonna say you heard it here first, because one of my opponents has actually kind of tacked it on his platform now. But I went to a class. It's called Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design.
Okay.
And so and it's short. The short for that is CEPTED. And so what they teach you in that class is that if we change the outlook of our environment by simple things as street lights, proper lighting around your house, adequate lighting around your house, cutting back your shrubbery, keeping your grass cut, keeping the trash picked up, and getting rid of the old rundown cars that everybody just all it needs is a radiator or alternator or a battery, and it's been needing that for 30 years. If we get rid of that stuff and the dilapidated houses, tear those things down, that'll change even the way the criminals perceive our neighborhoods. Okay. And the crime rate goes down. If you think about gas stations, those gas stations that are poorly lit, that are well kept, that are not well kept, but the poorly lit and poorly cared for, tend to have a higher element of crimes committed at those stations. But those stations that are, and I use the ones on 280, that are well lit, when you drive in, you know that you're seeing the cameras are there, the lighting is proper. You go into the store and everything is in order and it's clean, and they tend to not have the same problems with criminal activity or the criminal element hang around that we do. Because the bottom line is the devil operates in darkness. And so when we don't take care of our neighborhoods, we're presenting them with the recipe for danger in our neighborhood. And so all it takes is simple, something simple. And so that's something that I bring to the table that I know I've been trained on that. And I've spent my career being trained on what it takes to make our neighborhoods a safer place to live.
Okay. And then let's talk about doing the job. You will have to work with a lot of different people, different mayors throughout Jefferson County, city council members, primarily those that chair things such as public safety. Let's talk about those, even preachers, community leaders. Let's talk about how important those working relationships they are, and how you will make sure that you maintain good, healthy working relationships if elected to this position.
So that's one of the things that can help deter or minimize our violent crimes in our neighborhoods, or criminal activity, period. Is when we decide as a unit in Jefferson County, I will call Jefferson County a unit. Okay. When we decide corporate America, when we decide our educators, our superintendents from the Birmingham Board of Education, the Jefferson County Board of Education, Hoover Board, and so forth and so on, when we decide that our ministers and our community leaders will get together with all of our law enforcement officers and work together to combat crime, then we can change things. Then we can see a safer environment. It's going to take somebody to put their egos to the side and decide that we're going to do what's best for the community at large. Not just what's best for me and the people that I serve and represent, but what's best for the entire county. Because the bottom line is Birmingham's problem is not just Birmingham's problem. Mm-hmm. Bessemer's problem is not just Bessemer's problem. It's all of our problem.
Absolutely.
And so what we'll say is, well, I live in Pleasant Grove, or I live in Gardendale, and I live in Hoover, and what's going on in Birmingham, that's not my problem. But each and every last one of us travel through Birmingham,
Mm-hmm.
and it could very easily be you. So why wouldn't we buy into trying to make Birmingham a safer place to live? And then we're bringing the World Games to Birmingham. Do you really want the distinction of having one of the most violent cities in the United States?
Absolutely.
So I think that as a female, and because of my career path and because of the things that I've had to do over my 31 years in law enforcement, I can bridge the gap between all of us. I have that ability. I know that egos don't get this job done. I know that it's going to take some submitting. I know that it's going to take some meekness. I know that it's going to take some alpha personality sometimes. But whatever it takes, we need to do it and get the job done. Our children are dying.
Absolutely. That leads me to my next question. Good thing you mentioned children. When I was growing up, we had programs for students such as Scared Straight, the drugstore, which was in partnership with UAB, DARE, which went into our elementary schools, and GREAT, which went into our middle schools. Sadly enough, all of these programs are gone, and have been gone for a number of time. If elected to this office, would you like to see these programs brought back, even if not the same name? And how would you work with the schools and other elected officials to make sure that these programs are brought back, but they make a positive impact in our schools and our community?
It's ironic you should ask that. When I was in school resources as a deputy, later on came back as a captain, but as a deputy, I was in there when we had DARE. I was in there when we had GREAT. I actually attended GREAT training in Lake Teocala, Mississippi. I had never heard of that before, and it's a beautiful place. But that's where I attended my GREAT training at, and it worked. Now, there have been studies that suggest that Scared Straight did not work. I was never a part of that program. I don't know if it did or didn't, but I know that DARE and GREAT were wonderful programs to have in our schools, because what's happening now, we have SROs in our school, not DARE officers anymore, not GREAT officers, but just school resource officers. And so what they pretty much spend their day doing is just walking around the schools, making sure that the schools are safe and the children are safe. Well, we need to get back to where we're interacting with the children. We need to get back where we're going into the classroom and we're teaching them about the perils of drugs. We need to go back where we're teaching them about the life-altering changes that they make when they decide to join a gang or even to do drugs. So we need to go back and talk to those children. And I know for a fact that the school board would buy into it. The school board has the funding. Corporate America has the funding. Our city leaders have the funding, that I'm sure that if we present a program to them, that they will finance that program. But it's something that don't just need to happen when school is in. It's something that needs to transpire year round.
Absolutely.
So we need to find, we have our at-risk children. Those children during the school year, they never get to play sports. Because of their grades and because of their behavior. Well, if we never give them a reason to behave, then they'll never behave. I mean, because I got in trouble one time as a little girl, and I knew when I got home I was going to be in trouble and going to be on punishment. So heck, I made the best of it. So it's going to be my last time seeing you guys for a while. So I just go home when I get ready and just take one whooping, But and so that's the mindset of these kids, that well, nobody cares is what they're saying. I've heard children say, well, you can call my mama, she don't care. And so when you tell me you call my mama, she don't care, that speaks volumes.
That does.
That speaks volumes. And so I ask the children, do you really hear what you're saying? And I ask the parents, do you really understand what this means when your child believes that you don't care, that they're getting in trouble, that you don't care, that they're out of control? It speaks volumes. And so they never behave. They never get back on the straight and narrow. They continue to do things that they should not do because we as adults hadn't figured out a way to save our children.
Absolutely.
No matter what they are.
Absolutely. In talking about children, and one of the reasons why it's sad that we have to focus on this, but For those who've been keeping up with the statistic, I don't know, I've lost count, but I do know that it's been an alarming rate of high school fatalities that are happening just at Birmingham City School, and then there have
Mhm.
been, a few other incidents in Jefferson County School, Baltimore City schools,
Mhm.
and these things are happening nationwide. And this is not
Absolutely.
to bash any candidate that's running, because those who
Right.
come on the show, you're not bashing, but we have to really come together collectively, just as you said, to map out a problem. Let's talk about those students that are expelled from
Mhm.
school, class three.
Mm.
Um, I can remember, and I'm 37, be
Mm.
38 next year, not afraid to say it. So I know that a lot of things have changed. I can
Right.
remember when a child was on the verge of being class three or
Mhm.
expelled, that just didn't happen. You
Right.
know, if you were down that road, you had people brought into the school, and the
Mhm.
principal with other officials, even if there had to be professional counselors brought in out of
Mhm.
school, in the school, in addition to the guidance counselor. Class threes and being expelled, that was a last resort. But
Right.
now it seems that, if a child, whatever they do, we're quick to
Everything is
send them,
class three.
right, we're quick to send them to the detention center. And I don't even know what the
Alternative
detention
school.
center is in Birmingham City anymore. We send them to alternative school.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm not saying that it's the teacher's responsibility to put up with a child that's doing, exhibiting the types of behavior,
Mhm.
put up with that. But there have to be some other alternatives before we get to
I
that.
get to that. Yeah.
Um, how would you address that?
So, alternative school. I think I would reserve alternative school for those kids that commit crimes.
Okay.
Those kids that are just violating school policy. I mean, they have to come up with something, and maybe we can come up with something that involves our school resource officers. Can we really tie the school resource officers down with the students? No,
Right.
because his primary responsibility is to the entire school. Um, but it's a good question. It's not really one that's law enforcement related,
I got you.
but what happens when we keep kicking them over there? Um, they really don't dislike it. It's
Right.
really because they really want the discipline, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get over there, and I'm saying this from experience, uh, it's a controlled environment. There's discipline, and believe it or not, they follow the rules
Mm-hmm.
when they get over there. So all they really want is discipline. There's somebody to say what they mean and mean what they say to them. Hold them accountable for their actions. Stop sending them home. Maybe we can have something in the gym for them,
Mm-hmm.
separated from everybody else, or another classroom where we put them in. But keep them. They need to stay in school.
Absolutely.
We need to keep them in school because if we let them go too far, then they're going to drop out,
Mm-hmm.
and then they don't. Then they're no longer a school problem. Then they become a law enforcement problem because nobody's going to want to hire them because they're still children with a child's mindset. And so then they do those things that are easier for them. They start breaking in houses, breaking in cars, uh, selling drugs, uh, and so and at what point can we turn them around when we
Absolutely.
let that happen? I just saw before I got on with you where another teenager was killed here in Birmingham,
Mm-hmm.
17-year-old.
Right.
So we can't throw them in. We can't throw them to the streets. Uh, the Bible says they're foolish.
Absolutely.
And if God says they're foolish, who am I to disagree with them? And He tell us that teach the child in the way that they should go, and they'll come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't give up on them.
Do you feel that our in-school suspension possibly could be, and someone just put that in the comments, could be like particularly revisited,
I think
possibly,
so.
if the in-school suspension? Because I'm gonna be honest, and I wasn't a bad child, but every
Mm,
child that, if we honest, and I'm saying this, I was saying it,
mm,
my parents went on. Every child, you did something in school, whether you meant to do it or not, or whether you
right.
with friends, you got an in-school suspension. And what I got an in-school suspension for, I shouldn't have been in. And the assistant principal told me, because I was actually her aide, she said, I don't want to put you in here, but I got to, because she said, if I do this, that's not going to be fair to the other students.
Right.
And what we were doing when in school suspension, if I knew it was going to be that way too, if I could go in as regular, I would too. When we
Yeah.
got through with our schoolwork, we were playing cards.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher let us order Pizza Hut. We were watching
Oh my
movies.
goodness.
And, that's not enough to scare a student.
No,
That's like a reward. So,
it has to be a structured environment
right,
that you come in, no media, nothing but work, and there's no downtime for you,
right.
you know. And I think that if you and bring the lunch to them, I think there has to be some repercussions and consequences for their actions. And ordering pizza and playing cards is not a repercussion and consequence for your action, because in the regular classroom you can't do that,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
So most of them spend most of their time in there, if that's the case.
We're still good on time. Let's talk about crime initiatives. We've
Mhm.
seen a lot um, in Birmingham and other surrounding cities. For you, what would be the model crime initiative that you would be willing to work with? We've seen programs through Faith in Action.
Mhm.
We've seen a few other programs kind of hint around, and a few of those, I will say this, and this is no shader tea, the program that was innovated through Faith in Action, I think probably I would say in the last 2 to 4 years, that was probably the most consistent thing that we saw. And then when
Mhm.
COVID happened, a lot of things happened, kind of slowed down because of COVID. But
Right.
what would be that crime initiative program that you would be willing to partner with and work with, that you would say, okay, hey, I think we are on to something. I think, we all come together. This could be the thing that, we can move our communities forward, and we could slowly end to see a curb in our violence.
Right. So um, there was a program that was initiated up under this sheriff that actually ended before COVID, and it was called the Renew for Reentry program.
Okay.
But and so COVID wasn't the reason that that program ended.
Okay.
The thought process behind the program was a good one. The problem was in the county jail is not a good place for programs like that. And so I would say this: get with organizations that already have programs in place. But before we can implement these programs, we have to include the people like the jail commanders, um, uh, to find out what are the limitations
Gotcha.
that's in place by law and by policy when it comes to these inmates being involved in these programs. Because what happens is a lot of the people in the county jail are pretrial.
Okay.
And so our turnover rate is pretty high. So if you want to start a program, that's not a good place to start one inside of there. You really going to have to get with the courts
Okay.
and maybe get the courts on those low level crimes, get them to mandate that in lieu of prosecution, that they participate in some of those programs and complete the program and
Gotcha.
bring back proof and maybe hold them accountable uh, maybe a year or two. Say, it's in lieu of probation. This you have to maintain. First, you got to complete this training, and then you have to maintain this job with this company for 2 years,
Okay.
and then we'll null process your charges, which pretty much means make them go away. Because in the county jail setting, the people that are there the longest are the ones that are actually going to prison and won't really benefit from their program right now.
Okay.
And so they would actually benefit once they get down the road to prison and they have a better system in place to train them. But in our jail, the GED program is the best thing for an inmate in our jail. As far as the community goes, then we're going to have to get involved with the community leaders in corporate America and try to find some training opportunities for these guys. But we have to find out where they stand with their education, where they stand with their ability to read and understand and fill out applications before we can put them on your jobs. And where they stand with transportation.
Okay.
Because if those things are not in place, they're not going to be able to maintain.
Absolutely. And in addition to programs for those that are already incarcerated,
Mm-hmm.
what are your thoughts on a program like I mentioned earlier, Faith in Action? They
Mm-hmm.
had a prime initiative such as Peacemakers, where they were primarily walking the streets in the Western community, and I know it branched off, I think, to North Birmingham. I'm not sure what other areas where they were doing things such as talking to neighbors to talk about the crime initiative in the neighborhood. Because I think, and you tell me your thoughts on this, I think a lot of times we come up with things for inmates, but we forget about what are we going to do to curb the
For the community.
right, curb the community. If I could
Right.
go to Miss Sally's house, Miss Sally may be able to tell me about 4 crack houses in
Absolutely.
her area because she's retired. She sits on her porch, been in the neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
50 years, and she knows strange activities. So, what are your thoughts on a program like that?
So let me tell you what I did. When I was on patrol as the Lieutenant Investment
Okay.
Division, my city investment division of the county, um, Sergeant Pate was my patrol sergeant.
Okay.
And Sergeant Pate was a people person, hands down. And so we had a lot of complaints coming into the sheriff's office that really didn't rise to the level of criminal, and a lot of them was from older people that just really was lonesome and wanted somebody to talk to. And now, don't get me wrong, a lot of their complaints were legitimate, just didn't rise to the level of criminal. And so what I did is I pulled Sergeant Pate from patrol as a sergeant, and I let him be the liaison between the sheriff's office and those citizens that were calling.
Okay.
And so what he did, he went out into the communities that did not have, and particularly those that did not have the neighborhood watch program. He helped them to organize and set up their neighborhood watch programs. He attended their meetings.
Okay.
He attended the towns that we did patrol that were incorporated. He attended their city council meetings. He was a K9 for us too. So if they needed something done, he'd come out with the K9 to show them how things were done. But he went to their family functions. He was just a visible, viable force in the community. And so what happened with that? The complaints went down. The crime stats went down because Sergeant Pate was always his presence in those meetings and setting up those functions enabled the deputies to continue to do their jobs on the streets, where they didn't have to stop and answer a call from Miss Johnson, and really she just wanted to talk, and it may take an hour. They could continue to be proactive on the streets while Sergeant Pate helped us create plans and indoctrinate things that will make our neighborhoods a safer place to live. So that's what I would do. I would go back to having our officers reach back out to the community and set up neighborhood watch programs and teach them how to watch out for others in their neighborhood and how important it is to share what they find or what they know with our local law enforcement agencies.
Okay. We have about 12 minutes left. I want to make sure we get everything in.
Okay.
Mental illness
Mm-hmm.
is something that we are seeing an increasing number in,
Right.
especially in law enforcement. If
Mm-hmm.
elected to this position, what programs or initiatives are you looking to create that would allow those law enforcement that serve in Jefferson County to have that extra support? Because it can be a mental burnout. I
Right.
think
Okay.
we know these things, but we don't see it. We've heard several times where law enforcement, they've been on patrol with the partner, and their partner has been shot and killed
Mm-hmm.
right before their eyes. And if not giving the proper treatment,
Mm-hmm.
you could experience a nervous breakdown,
Mm-hmm.
depression, things we don't like to talk about, or they could even rise above that. So, if elected, what types of treatment and support are you looking to give law enforcement in Jefferson County?
So let me tell you this. What we've done over the years, and this is a pretty much a nationwide thing.
Okay.
We are really quick to create mental health awareness programs for the people that we serve.
Okay.
But all too often we forget about the people who serve those people.
Mm-hmm.
And so not just seeing their partners maybe shot or killed or assaulted. These guys and these ladies, they're out here and they're working the homicides
Mm-hmm.
that happens in our neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
And so they see everything. They see, believe it or not, they see things some medical professionals never see because it don't make it to them. It goes straight to the morgue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when we don't take care of our officers' mental health, then it shows in their work product. And so I think that periodically we need to stop and check on them. I think periodically, and especially when they work a homicide or when they work I've worked a situation where an entire family was killed by the father, you know, the mother and her 2 children. And to this day, I can still see that, you know. And so does it ever go away? No. But did anybody come along and teach me how to process that? No. And so we think about PTSD for soldiers. And the truth of the matter is the soldier sees these issues when he's in a war zone. This is every day for a police officer. It may not be to the magnitude that it is for a soldier once he's in a war zone, but it's every day. And so over time, what type of impact does that have on him? So we have mental health workers in place that'll go out with an officer to answer a call. We have and we've had that for years. We have mental health workers in the jail that evaluate the inmates and make recommendations to the courts. We've had that for years. I know we've had that since I've been at the sheriff's office. Donald Click was there in the 90s. That was her job in the 90s. Chartrice Jackson, that's her job now. So it's been an ongoing thing as far as caring for inmates' mental health and caring for John Q. citizens' mental health. But nobody has thought about the officer. No one. And so we've had, even recently, because of issues that's going on the job, and we had a deputy that committed suicide and named in his letter the sheriff's office and the issues that are going on to the sheriff's office is one of his reasons for ending his life. So we have to stop and take into consideration the well-being of these guys that are here to serve and protect you, because if they're not well, you won't be either.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be. They can't give you their best. Absolutely. They can't be proactive for you. They just can't do it if they're not taken care of. And so under my leadership, mental health evaluations will be required under certain circumstances. It wouldn't be an option.
Okay. I love it. 2 more questions.
Mm-hmm.
3, because we do have one that was submitted in the comments.
Okay.
As a female, would you be open to starting a county-wide self-defense class for women?
Listen, to be honest with you, we need a county-wide self-defense class for everybody, because that's why they're shooting each other. But absolutely, I would be.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then one other question. We talked about earlier law enforcement in Jefferson County getting in the neighborhood, building relationships with families and citizens. Mm-hmm. And that's important. To do that, would you be opposed to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office possibly doing community outreach programs such as neighborhood cookouts or things or fun days where you can kind of bridge the gap between the law enforcement and the citizens?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I think what's happening is not that a lot of times we don't want to get to know our law enforcement. A lot of times I think we forget that our law enforcement are regular people too.
Yes,
so
we do.
If you see them outside of their badge and their uniform, you may see them laughing and cutting up and doing other things too because they're regular people. So right. I do think that initiatives such as that, it could bridge the gap, and then it could make them be more trustworthy with say, hey, well, I saw Sally or Jim and they're good people. I know I can trust them. This is on to something.
Mm-hmm. So Back in the days, and I keep talking about way back when, but there was a time that the sheriff's office, and I can tell you, Miss Rena McWilliams was over the kitchen at the time, but we would every holiday, well, every Christmas, the sheriff's office would put a spread out, and it was you name it, Miss McWilliams had it out there, but it was in the lobby of both jails, and the citizens of Jefferson County. The lawyers and judges and anybody that worked downtown Birmingham or downtown Bessemer could come in and fellowship with us. And so that was a time to build relationships and mend bridges.
Okay.
And so every year, everybody looked forward to that because that was just something unique to the sheriff's office. And as a sheriff, I would get back to that.
Gotcha.
Because we need people to come into the jail or to come into our headquarters building and see us outside of just coming in to file a report, to see us outside of just coming in to get somebody out of jail. Mm-hmm. They need to see us pretty much with our guard down, relaxed, in a different atmosphere and enjoying ourselves along with them. And I think that we will have a better understanding of each other and a greater respect for each other when we do that.
Before I ask this question, it kind of ties into that one in a way. What are your thoughts on gun buybacks? I know for years this was a part of the Dr. Martin Luther King celebration that was held yearly, and we saw great results of this program. Do you would you be in favor of this being maybe an annual thing, a quarterly thing?
Absolutely. We need to get as many guns off the streets as we can. But now, and what we have to do too is we have to teach our gun owners how to be responsible with their guns. Okay. And that's not leaving them in your car, because that's how the average person on the streets that should not have a gun. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, that's how they're getting their hands on your guns. Because we'll come home and we feel safe in our communities, and we don't lock our cars. We'll leave our purses, our guns, our cell phones, our iPads, our laptops in the car, and the criminal just come by and he don't break your windows anymore. He just pull on the door latch and it opens and he's take everything you have. So absolutely, I'm in favor of gun buybacks because you mentioned earlier my son was killed. And so I have a special place in my heart for keeping our community safe, and just whatever we can do to get as many off the streets as we can. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And the question, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. We'll go with that one. What is the most important thing you will bring if elected?
So the most important thing I would bring if elected is qualification and commitment. I'm qualified. I don't have to come in and learn how to do the job. All too often, if we don't have the training and the qualifications needed to do a job of this magnitude, then we'll spend our first term trying to get up to par. And then we need another term to kind of implement those things that we want to implement. But if it's something that you've been involved with all along, if you've been in a position of command and in the boardroom when decisions were made and know the avenues and the routes that you need to take to make those decisions, then I could hit the ground running. So I bring to the table qualifications. I bring to the table a commitment to serve the community that I will be elected to serve, which is Jefferson County and the people of Jefferson County, and not just select people of Jefferson County, but every single person in Jefferson County, whether they have a police department or not. Words mean something. Jefferson County Sheriff means I serve all the people.
Absolutely. All right, last question. How do you feel about the concealed carry gun law in Alabama?
So we are not interpreters and not, we just enforce the law. We don't interpret the law. We don't write the law. I think that it does not affect the law-abiding citizens.
Okay.
But let me rephrase it. It don't affect the criminals, because they could care less about any law that's on the books. They're going to do what they want to do anyway. What it does do, it hinders some of our, it removes a tool from us. an investigative tool when we're investigating crimes. So if I pull you over and you're a suspect in a robbery and you have a gun, well, because of our new laws on the book, there's not much I can ask you about that gun, because you don't have to have a permit to carry it anymore.
Absolutely.
And so I'm kind of stuck. If I caught you carrying this gun and you was a suspect in a crime, then under the old law, I could take it and get it tested and take it from there. You at least build a case. But now it's kind of hindered law enforcement when it comes to investigating violent crimes.
All right, Felicia, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. I've enjoyed getting to know more about you as a person and candidate for Jefferson County Sheriff. I have went ahead and posted your Facebook page, which is Felicia for Sheriff, in the comment section. I'll go ahead and let me go ahead and post that. And there it is again. It's Felicia for Sheriff on Facebook. And then also your website, FeliciaForSheriff.com. As I've done with the other candidates, I'm sure since we're 8 days away, I'm sure you could use all hands on volunteers to finish up these last few days of canvassing and also welcoming all donations. So to close out this evening, take about a minute and a half to give us any closing words you would like the voters to know.
Okay. I am Felicia. I'm running for sheriff. I'm the most qualified candidate on the ballot. I am committed to the citizens of Jefferson County, always have been. It's not anything that I've started because I want to be your sheriff. It's something I've always done because I was a public servant, and I am a public servant. On May 24th, vote Felicia Rucker-Sumerlin for your sheriff. I am the only female candidate on the ballot. I'm the first female in Jefferson County to qualify to be sheriff. And I only decided to run because the citizens of Jefferson County need me, the deputies in the sheriff's office need me, and I'm qualified. I would not stick my neck out there to be your sheriff if I was not qualified, because the last thing I want to do is disappoint the citizens of Jefferson County. On May 24th, vote Felicia Rucker-Sumerlin for sheriff. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Felicia. We wish you best wishes.
Thank you for having me.
You will fought in the real runways. You're absolutely welcome.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and put you backstage at this time.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That is our part 2 edition of Perspective Meet the Candidate. We will be back on tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, our lineup tomorrow includes Lanice Washington, who is seeking re-election for District Attorney, Bessemer Division. We will have Adrian Powell, who is running for Jefferson County Circuit Judge, place 23, and Dr. Will Boyd running for U.S. Senate. As always, keep the faith. Thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a great evening.